There is a part of the twin flame journey that often happens in complete silence. No messages, no explanations, no visible movement, and yet, beneath all that silence, an entire inner world may be changing. The divine masculine may appear distant, detached, emotionally unavailable, or completely focused on the physical world. But healing does not always look like crying, journaling, meditating, or openly talking about emotions. Sometimes, healing looks like withdrawal, confusion. It looks like losing interest in the life you once thought you wanted. And sometimes, healing begins when a person can no longer run from themselves. Hello, my divine souls. Welcome to Spiritual Bloom, where we bloom within our consciousness, with your spiritual guide and twin flame coach Neha. Today, in this episode, we are going deep into divine masculine healing. What is the divine masculine actually healing? And why does the process often appear so slow? Why do they always withdraw? So, to understand the divine masculine healing, we first need to understand the divine masculine wound. Many masculine energies have been conditioned from childhood to survive through emotional suppression. They were always taught to be strong, not to cry or show their emotions, show their weakness. They should always be able to solve the problem. Their parents, their families always kept expectations from them to provide, to perform, or to achieve. And in this process, very few were taught how to safely experience emotions. Very few were taught how to sit with grief or how to express their fear and communicate their vulnerability. So, the masculine nervous system often learns something very early. They learn that emotions are equal to danger. Vulnerability means loss of control as per them. And intimacy can feel threatening because intimacy requires emotional exposure. So, when they have this kind of mindset, it creates a survival pattern. And instead of feeling any emotions, they start thinking, contemplating, and puts that feeling into a practical world. Instead of processing emotions, they try to distract themselves with work. Instead of communicating anything openly, what they do is they withdraw, they ghost. And instead of surrendering the entire dynamic, what they do? They try to control the situation. This does not excuse harmful behavior because healing must always include accountability. But understanding the wound helps us understand the pattern. The divine masculine is often not simply running from another person. He may be running from emotions he never learned how to hold. Now, why does this twin flame journey triggers the divine masculine? A deep spiritual connection can activate emotional material that has been buried for years. Just imagine living your entire life behind emotional walls. You feel safe because everything is controlled. Relationships look like they are predictable. Emotions remain manageable and their identity feels stable. And suddenly, out of nowhere, someone enters their life who seems to see behind the walls. They activate feelings that they cannot logically explain. They mirror insecurities, fears, hidden desires, and even parts of themselves that they have rejected long ago. So, for the divine masculine, this intensity can feel overwhelming because the connection may activate something his nervous system has spent years avoiding. That is emotional vulnerability. He may feel deeply connected and simultaneously feel an intense urge to escape at the same time. And when he tries to do that, this creates inner conflict. The soul moves towards authenticity, whereas the survival system moves towards familiarity. That's why the survival system keeps them trapped for a very long time, even when their soul tries to move towards authenticity. This is why some divine masculines pull away after intense moments of connection. Not every withdrawal is spiritual awakening, and not every emotionally unavailable person is a divine masculine. But within the twin flame spiritual framework, withdrawal is often interpreted as a period where deep internal wounds are being activated. Now we'll discuss what is a father wound and what role it plays in a divine masculine's life. Now, one of the deepest wounds that divine masculine may carry is the father wound. Perhaps his father was emotionally unavailable. Love was expressed through responsibility rather than affection. Perhaps they had to earn approval. Their mistakes were punished and their vulnerability was mocked. Or sometimes the father figure was physically or emotionally absent. So, in such situations, a young boy may unconsciously learn that I must become strong to survive, or they may have a mindset that will develop with time that I cannot depend on anyone, or my value comes from what I achieve, or I must never lose control. So these are the basic thoughts that the divine masculine learns since a very young age. Now these beliefs do not disappear when he becomes an adult. They enter relationships, they influence intimacy, affect communication, and shape the way he responds to conflict. The divine masculine may struggle to receive love because deep inside he believes that love must be earned. So when someone offers unconditional emotional connection, it may actually feel unfamiliar to them. And the nervous system often distrusts what feels unfamiliar, even when that unfamiliar experience is love. Healing the father wound requires the divine masculine to redefine strength. And strength is not emotional suppression, emotional capacity. Strength is the ability to feel pain without destroying yourself or others. Strength is taking responsibility and allowing another person to see your heart. Now, the divine masculine also goes through mother wound. Perhaps the mother was emotionally inconsistent or overprotective, controlling, dominating, unavailable. Or in some cases, the child became responsible for the mother's emotional well-being because the father was absent. And this can create complicated patterns within the feminine energy of the divine masculine. The divine masculine may deeply desire feminine love, but fear being consumed by it. He may crave intimacy, but feel trapped when intimacy becomes emotionally intense. He may unconsciously associate closeness with responsibility. So when the divine feminine expresses deep emotions, his nervous system may interpret those emotions as, I am responsible for fixing this. And when he does not know how to fix that feeling, those deep emotions which the divine feminine is giving, what he does, he withdraws. So healing the mother wound means learning that love does not require emotional self-abandonment. He can love someone without becoming responsible for their entire emotional world. And he can receive love without losing his independence. Now, one of the most powerful stages of divine masculine healing begins when suppressed emotion starts rising. At first, he may not even understand what is happening. He may feel restless, irritated, emotionally exhausted, disconnected from his old life. He may suddenly remember his childhood experiences, past relationships, old regrets, moments when he hurt someone or someone hurted him. The emotions were always there, but now what happens? The walls are becoming weaker because grief begins surfacing, anger surfaces, shame begins surfacing, and this stage can be extremely uncomfortable because the divine masculine has often built his identity around control. But healing requires feeling. You cannot intellectually solve grief. You cannot logically calculate your way out of trauma. The body must process what the mind was once buried, and this is where the nervous system healing becomes incredibly important. The divine masculine must slowly learn that they can experience emotion and still remain safe. And when they start learning that, what happens? Emotional regulation takes place. But developing the capacity to experience them consciously. Now, divine masculine healing also involves a criteria where they have identity crisis. The old version of him begins losing meaning. The career that once defined him may feel empty. The relationships that once felt comfortable may feel disconnected. The lifestyle that once distracted him may no longer satisfy him. And they start questioning themselves. They start questioning, what am I doing in my life? Who am I? What is my purpose? And why do I always feel disconnected from everything? And when they start feeling all these things, or they start questioning, this is often described as ego dissolution. But psychologically, it may also represent a deep questioning of identity, values, and conditioned beliefs. The divine masculine begins realizing that he has spent years becoming the person everyone expected him to be, and not what he expected himself to be. The successful man, the responsible man, the strong man, the emotionally controlled man, and beneath all those identities, there is a human being who wants to feel alive. Now, another part which the divine masculine goes through in their healing journey is healing shame. Shame is one of the deepest emotions within masculine healing. The divine masculine may carry a shame about his past, his choices, his relationships, failures, emotional avoidance, or even the way he handled the twin flame connection. And shame often creates more avoidance because they start believing that maybe I was the bad person. So instead of taking accountability, what they do is they avoid confronting their actions. And in this process, healing requires a shift from shame to responsibility. Instead of thinking that I am a terrible person or I did so and so to such person, when a masculine is healed, their thought process becomes like, I made the choices that caused pain, but at the same time, they take responsibility, accountability, and from that moment onwards, they choose to carry forward their life, their decisions differently. Accountability is not self-destruction, it is consciousness. The divine masculine begins healing when he stops defending every action and becomes curious about his patterns. Now, vulnerability is often one of the final walls in this healing journey because vulnerability means being seen, truly seen, without any status, achievement, or emotional armor. And in this stage, the divine masculine fears that what if I open my heart and am rejected? What if I am not good enough or I lose control? What if this love changes everything? So what he does, he protects himself. But eventually, the protection becomes a prison. The walls that keep pain outside also keeps love outside. Healing requires the masculine to slowly open, not through pressure, not through chasing or emotional manipulation, but through internal safety. And when a person feels safe within themselves, they no longer need extreme emotional walls. Now, many people they ask that why do they withdraw if they are healing? And many people they misunderstand withdrawal. They think that if that person is healing, he should immediately communicate. But let me tell you that inner transformation is rarely linear. Sometimes the divine masculine becomes quieter because probably he needs space to process the entire dynamic. Because his whole identity is collapsing, emotions are surfacing, and slowly priorities are also changing. And he may not yet have language for what is happening because he himself is trying to process. But in this case, you should also remember that spirituality should never be used to justify indefinite emotional neglect, disrespect, manipulation, or abuse. You do not need to abandon your boundaries because someone is supposedly healing. You can hold compassion, forgiveness, and still have standards. You can choose to understand someone's trauma and still protect your emotional well-being. And you can love someone without chasing them. Because divine feminine energy does not heal the masculine by sacrificing herself. The masculine must choose his own healing. Now, in this entire process of divine masculine healing, what does the divine feminine must understand? The divine feminines must understand that you cannot force his awakening. You are not his teacher. You cannot heal his father wound or his mother wound. Don't try to become his guardian. You cannot process their grief or regulate their nervous system. Don't try to become their therapist. And don't try to wait endlessly for them. Your work is your own consciousness, is healing your own nervous system, creating your own boundaries, living your own purpose. Because what happens when the divine feminine stops abandoning herself, she changes the entire dynamic. And this shift happens from obsession to inner union. And when the divine feminine is grounded in her own energy and focuses on herself rather than being a therapist or a mother, father, guardian, healer for the divine masculine, what happens is the healing process of the divine masculine intensifies. It doesn't slow, but it becomes faster than usual. Now, real healing in case of divine masculine eventually creates behavioral changes. A healing divine masculine may begin becoming more self-aware because he starts questioning everything in his life, and slowly and gradually they start taking responsibility. Their priorities change and his actions begin aligning with his inner truth. So, the healed divine masculine is not emotionless. A healed divine masculine is emotionally grounded. They don't dominate or control or suppress. They communicate clearly. They create boundaries but without building emotional walls. And most importantly, he can hold space for feminine emotions without feeling responsible for fixing everything. He starts experiencing fear, but he doesn't run. He loves deeply, but he doesn't abandon himself. The healed masculine understands that softness does not destroy strength. Instead, softness gives strength. He becomes a safe container for his own emotions, and because he feels safe within himself, he becomes capable of creating emotional safety in relationships. If the divine masculine is healing, his greatest battle may not be with the divine feminine. It may be with the version of himself he created to survive. The emotionally unavailable version, the controlling version, hyper independent version. Healing asks him to meet the child beneath the armor, the grief beneath the anger, and the love beneath the walls. But remember, every soul has a free will. Healing cannot be forced, awakening cannot be demanded, and love should never require you to abandon yourself. So, whether your divine masculine is near or far, communicating or completely silent, it is your duty to return to your own inner world. Heal yourself, build your purpose, and choose yourself each day. Because the twin flame journey is not about spending your entire existence watching another person's awakening. It is about becoming conscious within your own. So, if this video resonated with you, do like, share, subscribe, and comment. For any kind of personal guidance, you can WhatsApp or email me. My contact details have been given in the description box. Thank you for supporting me and motivating me. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again in another episode.